Why are we afraid that Vikram or Ram or Rahim or Mala or Suman cannot read or write? Why are we not afraid that they cannot paint, they cannot dance, they cannot meditate, they cannot cope with anger, envy, stress, they cannot express tenderness or love? They don't really have an understanding of who they are, or even if they have a self to find. If what we are teaching in our classrooms has nothing to do with their health, their happiness, or their sanity and survival, what then is our education worth? We must not look at formative assessment as independent assessment of the summative. So there's a lot that's happening, and it's very important that children hook themselves onto the global understanding of education. Because globally, why is it that when Indians go abroad and if they want to practice, they're asked to again do the medicine? When they're asked to teach in school, they're again asked to do a course in education. For me personally, I think the whole understanding of continuous comprehensive evaluation, the transaction of this kind of work is very, very necessary and very important to child learning. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but it's a system that is coming in, and I think that if we work on it in a committed and in a more precise and a sort of involved manner, over a couple of years, our children will start thinking out of the box. Our children will start thinking synthetically. Our children will start thinking with a certain level of connectivity and not in isolation as textbooks thinking happens.
I look at CCE in two ways. One, it liberates because it enlarges the scope of learning. It does not limit learning only to content, doesn't limit learning to written tests, which test basically memory and content, and allows different kinds of learners to learn in different kinds of ways. It has legitimized the kind of practices good schools have generally been following for many years. It allows us to bring various experiences into the classroom. It enlarges the scope of learning to include all the kinds of activities that have been suggested and have been used in many schools for many years, and provides an opportunity for a teacher to make learning experiential. It also provides an opportunity for evaluation and assessment to be done in wider ways. In another way, it's liberating in the sense that you need not focus on all the content in the same way. It is for us to interpret our teaching system by thinking, why am I teaching? What am I teaching? What is the child learning? Because when we are teaching, we often think of teachers, that you are teaching. But we forget, we are here to teach children, and unless they learn, and then also question, what are they learning? Why are they learning? How long is the learning going to stay with them? Unless we ask these questions, we will not find the right focus for our teaching. Our teaching is effective only if our children learn. All schools have received certain guidelines about what areas to assess, how to assess, and the different grades to be allotted. I know that there are a lot of challenges for all teachers. You know, when you are assessing a child of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the most difficult years, when he is experimenting, when he is rebellious, when he is not emotionally secure or emotionally mature, and you are awarding a grade that, okay, this child misbehaved with such and such, so-and-so got into a fight with so-and-so, therefore does not deserve a good grade. So-and-so spoke out of turn. That is where the teachers need to be very cautious. There are certain things which are developmental, certain behaviors which are developmental and are a part of a child's growth, and you need to consider that a teenager is by definition rebellious. A teenager will question, And if you do not allow him to question, and if you find his rebellion unacceptable, there may be, how do you express your behavior, your rebellion? How do you question the manners? Gently we need to guide them that this is the acceptable way of responding, and this is an unacceptable way. So I see as teachers, it is our role also to teach children life skills of how do you respond to certain triggers, be it amongst themselves or with the teacher and so on, which means a whole lot of responsibility for teachers who are not really always trained for this. They have thought of themselves as a maths teacher or as a science teacher, but not as a teacher of children. Not as a teacher who can handle various kinds of stages of growth in the intellectual, emotional, and cultural, spiritual growth of the child. But now the teacher also needs to be very sensitive.
Well, when I say about CCE being stress-free, I would like to stress upon one thing. There is nothing stress-free. And the stress has never been out of life. And to say that there is no stress with this new system, I personally feel is wrong. There never was stress, and if there is stress now, it has to be there. It's just that there is no examination phobia. The phobia has been removed, but the stress is there, and the stress has shifted from one aspect to another. So it is the shifting of the stress. Then there is continuity now. Earlier, there wasn't this kind of continuity. Now, when this kind of continuity was not there, there are students of different kind. There were students who are very regular. They religiously come back from school. They revise whatever is to be done, do the homework, put it aside, stick to their own schedule, and they work accordingly and absolutely up to date. But there were students, and there are students even now, who never believed in working every day. It was somewhere here what they learned in the class, and it was only towards the end that they learned and they could recall. Well, that was a system, and it is not system, I would say that is how most of us are. Frankly speaking, I did that way. I thought first few months in a session were meant for certain things, and we spent time on that. And yes, whatever was taught in the class was remembered. We could recall. At that age, it is not that difficult for a teacher for a student who's attentive to recall. But we never had that kind of thing where we had to sit down every day, do this, that kind of continuity. Now, children who are not of that nature, for them this is a very big stress to have this kind of continuity.
Today, now from 9th onwards, I'm going to assess you on your attitudes and values. But till 6, 7, 8, only examination was good enough for you. I don't think that works. I think it should be right from the beginning. We are watching the children. We are observing the children. We have to have a group of teachers together assessing the students. Why only one teacher where the biases of the parent and the teachers and the students will come? So have the group of teachers to do the assessment of the students, have the anecdotal record, descriptive records, but everything must be very clearly defined.
CCE permeates every aspect of school life. And when we talk about FAs, we actually are trying to improve the learning pedagogy. How the teacher teaches. If the teacher teaches in a manner in which the child cannot learn, then she must change her teaching strategies, and through the FAs, because children also learn in a spiral method. They don't learn in a linear manner. They don't go from one level to another, but they keep revisiting concepts. And when they revisit concepts, they make their corrections in case of any wrong concept that they have not understood, or they have developed a wrong concept. So through a system of feedback, the child tries to improve his own learning. And as we all know, children construct their own knowledge, or at least we should make them try to provide an environment where they are able to construct their own knowledge. The whole didactic system of education is no more valid and acceptable to children. Children want a more experimental method, more collaborative method of learning, and so they learn better in that kind of environment. And so the FAs become even more significant in this whole scenario, Because when they get a feedback, the teacher also gets a trigger as to where she has gone wrong and what is it that needs to be improved in terms of pedagogy. So you're constantly reviewing concepts. So that, of course, is important as far as FA and then essay. What is the role of the essay? It tells you, it gives you the position where the child is vis-a-vis his terminal goal, whether you call it a permanent goal at the end of the year or halfway through, and it gives you a good idea as to how much learning has taken place.